Hey, Michael with XForcePC. Want to talk a little bit about getting into flight simulation. So let's say you, your son, your daughter, your mother, your father, your brother, your grandson, your granddaughter, or just a friend of yours wants to get into flight simulation. Where do you start? That's what this video is about. How do you get started? Because around Christmas time is when I get these phone calls from mothers and fathers who say that their son or their daughter has expressed interest in flight simulation and wants to become a pilot, and they want to get them something for Christmas to kind of get them started. And with a simulator, it's really a great way to get started and kind of jumpstart your training so you're much more prepared when you go out into the real plane. The flight simulation computer can do really just about anything that the plane can do. All the navigation stuff, all the gauges work and so forth. It's a really good training tool. So where to begin? Well, there's some basic things that you're going to need. I guess we'll start first with the controls. At the very least, you're going to need something called a yoke. That kind of looks like a steering wheel if you're not familiar with airplanes, but you know, it's a little more than a steering wheel. It does go in and out. You know, you push it in and pull it out, and it turns left and right. And so that's something that you're absolutely going to have is almost certainly a yoke. Now they do make flight sticks or joysticks as people call them, but if you're just getting into flight simulation, you're almost certainly going to be in a plane that uses a yoke, like a Cessna. So we always recommend a yoke. The second thing that would be handy to have would be a set of rudder pedals. No, they're not rubber pedals, they're rudder pedals. And they will kind of go like this. When you push the right one in, the left one comes back, and vice versa. And they also have toe brakes on them where you can use the brakes to brake, you know, like in a car, like you're pushing the brakes in a car. They are not required, at least in X-Plane, and I think most of the other flight sims as well. If you don't assign anything to yaw or rudder, then the yoke will serve that purpose. So if you're looking to, you know, save a little bit of money, you could forego the rudder pedals, but I will tell you that, you know, if you're going to be serious about it, you really do need to get a set of rudder pedals. So on the low end, there's really two competitors or two products. There's CH products. They make the Flight Sim yoke and the Eclipse yoke, and then they make the CH Pro pedals. And then on the other side, or the other company that's making those same controls, they used to be known as Cytec, but now they've been bought by Logitech. So you have the Pro Flight yoke and you have the Pro Flight pedals. I will say that most people tend to prefer the Logitech/Cytec products a little bit more, and they also are a little bit more expensive. But in round numbers, a yoke is about 150 bucks, and a set of rudder pedals are about 150 bucks. So you know, you're looking at $300-ish for those two items. Now, the other thing you need is you can't just run this flight simulation software on any old computer. You can't just fire up your tired old desktop that you bought at Staples and run this flight simulator. In fact, you need a gaming computer. And if you just went out and bought a computer, 300 bucks, 400 bucks, you know, just to surf the internet and do your QuickBooks, it's not going to be for flight simulation. You're not going to want to use it for flight simulation because it's not going to do a very good job. If you didn't seek out a gaming computer, then you almost certainly don't have a gaming computer. A gaming computer comes with something very important, and it's called a graphics card. And so this is a gaming computer here. This is our budget system. But you see, this has this all-important graphics card in it. It is a card that goes in the computer that's dedicated just to graphics, making the pretty things show up on the screen. Now, the other thing you have to have for these flight simulators is a very fast processor. And you know, a lot of times you do have a fast processor, you're just missing the graphics card part. But we found, first of all, that Intel processors do a whole lot better than AMD for whatever reason. Preferably i5. Intel makes the Pentium, that's the lowest end, the i3, the i5, and then the i7. We recommend the i5 or the i7 for doing X-Plane or Microsoft Flight Simulator, whatever simulator you're going to do. So don't make the mistake of going out and spending $300 on a yoke and pedals and buying a flight simulator software and then trying to run it on your, home, web surfing computer or your $300 laptop. It's just not going to work. Not at all. Not at all. So you will need a gaming computer. Gaming PCs, don't plan to spend less than about $800. If you do, you're not really getting a good gaming PC. You don't want to buy a bad gaming PC because then, well, you're not really much better off than when you started. So you need to budget at least $800. Probably don't need to spend more than $2,000. If you do, you're probably you're spending a lot of money to be in that real top bracket, and you may not need to be there. Now, a lot of that will depend on the number of displays and all that you want to do, but we're talking about getting started right now, so I'm not even going to get into all that. Just know that you probably need to budget at least $800 if you don't have a gaming PC, and preferably the sweet spot's probably going to be in the $1,200 to $1,500 range to get something that's going to have some really good longevity to it. So do budget that for a gaming computer if you don't have one. Now, the last piece of hardware you need is a good display. This is actually a TV. But really, what we recommend is usually a 1080p display. You're probably familiar with that from televisions. A lot of televisions are 1080p. And 27 inches is a good size. 24 inch is probably the most common size monitor these days, but we recommend spending a little bit more, getting a 27 inch or even possibly a 32 inch 1080p display. So you do need a good monitor. Of course, you don't want to buy all this nice stuff and then show it on something that doesn't look that great. Now, the last thing that I'll talk about is the software itself. There are 3 flight simulators, in my opinion, worth considering. You have Microsoft Flight Simulator, then you have something called Prepared or Prepare 3D. Basically, it's the word prepared with the last E spelled with a 3. So I don't know if you call it Prepared or Prepare 3D. I don't know. I've said it both ways. And then you have X-Plane. Now we prefer X-Plane. X-Plane was written by an aerospace engineer. It uses aerospace engineering formulas to determine exactly what the plane is going to do. And with X-Plane 11 having just come out, X-Plane 11 fixes a lot of the things that people complained about on previous versions of X-Plane, and that's the user interface mainly. It has a much nicer user interface. It's much easier to use than it ever has been, and brings it up to the level of ease of use that you'll find in the other 2 simulators I mentioned. Now, the most popular one that's been around forever is Microsoft Flight Simulator, and the latest version is version 10. But that came out, I think, in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's what the 10 is for. So that's 6 years ago, going on 7 years ago. So it's pretty long in the tooth. Now there's a robust add-on community out there that's written all kinds of add-ons for Microsoft Flight Sim, scenery and planes and all kinds of stuff. So you can bring it sort of up to date with a lot of add-ons. But if you're going to go in that direction, I would point you towards the third option, which is Prepared or Prepare 3D. What they did is they licensed the Microsoft Flight Simulator code, and then they polished it up and brought it up more to today's standards. So to me, I kind of strike off Microsoft Flight Sim. It's like, why would you buy that when you can buy the same thing that's just a little bit, better, and that's Prepared. So in ranking them, again, we choose X-Plane as number 1. That's what we use. And then the other option being Prepared or Prepare 3D, and the Probably the worst option in my opinion is Microsoft Flight Sim. Now the one catch with Prepared or Prepare 3D is it's not technically licensed for home use. They have a business and they have a educational license, but they don't have a license that's for home use. And my assumption here is that when they went to Microsoft and they licensed Microsoft's code, that Microsoft said, y'all can't target the home user market, that's for us. We maintain the home user market. And so again, you won't find a home use license. So you'll be torn between either buy for $200 the business license, the professional as they call it, or you buy the educational. You'll just have to read the licensing and decide for yourself. As far as the products themselves, I don't think there's any difference. I haven't found any difference between the Pro version and the educational version. I think it's simply licensing, and in other words, how much you pay for it. So to summarize, again, you're just getting into flight simulation, or your significant other is getting into flight simulation. You need a yoke, you need some pedals, you need a gaming computer, you need a good display, and then you got to pick the software. And the software we prefer is X-Plane. So hopefully that helps. If you have any questions, you can always send me an email, michael@xforcepc.com. Again, that is michael@xforcepc.com.